So as Donald Trump continues to rail against the Republican delegate system, many political pundits say he is wasting valuable time, that instead of complaining about the rules, he should be using them to his own advantage. Mark Thiessen of the Washington Post writes in an op-ed that Trump should be taking a page from history. Quote, "He's now learning that Twitter and free media cannot win delegates. Trump likes to compare himself to Ronald Reagan. Well, if he doesn't stop complaining and start campaigning, he may end up as Reagan did in 1976, the runner-up." Let's talk about it with Elizabeth Harrington, staff writer for the Washington Free Beacon, and James Hohmann is national political correspondent for the Washington Post. The accusation, the charge is, Elizabeth, that Donald Trump, for his mastery of the media, has not mastered campaign strategy, and he's not picking up the delegates or picking up delegates and delegate support where it matters.
Right, and it'll be interesting to see if Trump will be the Reagan of 76 or the Reagan of 80, who actually got the nomination in 1980. What we're seeing here is Ted Cruz, his strategy, which is basically the only strategy he has at this point because he can't get to the 1237 outright, is to use the arcane system in a lot of these states to peel off delegates, which is well within the rules. But I think it's going to backfire a little bit because, if it's right or not, people feel disenfranchised. The voters feel disenfranchised. They think their votes don't matter when you see a state that Trump won, and then because Cruz is more effective at using the rules to his advantage, he's peeling off delegates. So you're seeing that on the Democratic side with superdelegates, and you're seeing it on the Republican side here. And I think that feeds into the narrative. It's only going to embolden Trump's supporters, and it's making Cruz come off as less likable than he already is.
But James, Donald Trump did score one in Michigan with the delegate process there, didn't he?
Yeah, John, Michigan is the exception more than the rule. So this past weekend, Trump teamed up with the Kasich folks. And originally, the Kasich folks were talking about partnering with the Cruz people, and instead, Kasich and Trump supporters voted together. Trump won the Michigan primary. He ended up getting the key seats on the Rules and Credentials Committee. So they may seem kind of like it doesn't matter at this point. But once we get to Cleveland in July, it's going to be very important whose people are sitting on the 150-member committee that will decide what the rules of the convention are, who's can compete on the floor, who can't. So Trump did show that he may be able to get his act together there, but he's struggling sort of across the board, and in a lot of places people are winning Trump delegate slots that belong to him, who may vote for him on the first ballot, but once they're no longer legally bound to, will be with Cruz on the second.
Well, James, sticking with you for the moment, is that perhaps a sign of the effectiveness of Paul Manafort, who is a very cagey political operative, knows the delegate system, and Trump just hired him a week or so ago?
Well, yeah, so Paul worked on the Gerald Ford campaign in 1976 when he beat Reagan at the Republican convention, the last real contested convention Republicans had. Manafort is starting to build an organization, but here's the thing. As talented and skilled as he is, you can't retroactively go back and organize. You actually need bodies and supporters to show up at county-level conventions and district-level conventions and spend their Saturdays, nice spring Saturdays, inside, doing the minutia of what it takes to become a delegate. So Paul is at Trump Tower now trying to get everything organized, but there's only so much he can do at this point.
Oh, Elizabeth, I want to read for you one more quote from Mark Thiessen's piece in the Washington Post today. You probably saw it. He writes, "If Trump cannot compete, he has no one to blame but himself." In February, after losing Iowa to Cruz, Trump said he never realized the importance of building a field organization. But instead of going out and building one, he's done the opposite. Politico reports that since March, Trump has been laying off field staff en masse. Trump brags about how rich he is, but he has run his campaign on the cheap, relying on provocative tweets and massive advantage in free media to win primaries. What do you think about that, Elizabeth?
Well, yes, I think this is one of the most unconventional campaigns we've ever seen, and it helps him in some ways because he's able to play the media and get massive amounts of free media. But at the same time, it hurts him in other places like organizing and this delegate hunt. But I think it's important to keep in mind that really all of this delegate hunting isn't going to matter that much because Trump only has a chance to win the nomination outright. if it's a contested convention, there's no way he's going to win unless he gets very close to the 1237 threshold, and people will unify it behind him, and because they'll be scared that the voters will revolt. But otherwise, I mean, there's no real way that Trump is going to win on a second ballot, and this is Cruz's only chance at the same time. So really, it's a lot of talk, but Trump has to win states, and he has to win it outright.
Could bring on the revolt you were talking about. Elizabeth Harrington from the Free Beacon, James Hohmann from the Washington Post. Thank you both.
Thanks.
Thank you.